Hey, I'm Kelly. If you love cars as much as I do, you're in the right place. From drifting car days to uncovering the world's most iconic rides. Gear up and subscribe to Drive with Kelly for non-stop car fun. If you are a shorter rider looking for your first or second motorcycle, you have probably noticed the same bikes being recommended to you over and over again. Seriously, how many times has someone pointed you toward the Rebel 500? And look, with a 27-inch seat height, it is a genuinely solid option. But seat height alone does not tell you the full story. Standover height, center of gravity, overall ergonomics, all of these contribute to how confident a shorter rider actually feels on a motorcycle. Eventually, skill takes over, and you can ride whatever you want. But when you are new, confidence is everything. And it is hard to build confidence on a bike that is actively working against you. Today, we are going through what actually makes a motorcycle manageable for shorter riders, not just seat height numbers, but the full picture. Let's get into it. Why seat height alone misleads you. If there is one thing to take away from this entire conversation, it is that seat height does not tell the whole story. What genuinely changes your ability to reach the ground is standover height, specifically how wide the bike seat is between your legs when you go to put a foot down. When you plant your feet, your legs do not drop straight to the ground. They bow outward because of the seat width. A particularly wide seat makes a bike feel significantly taller than the stated seat height suggests. This is where a lot of shorter riders get caught off guard. They will sit on a bike with a 29-inch seat height and feel less comfortable than they do on a bike listed at 32 inches, simply because the narrower one lets their legs drop more naturally. A perfect example is the Honda CRF300L S, the lowered version of Honda's proven dual sport. Even though the seat height still sits around 32 inches, it feels genuinely manageable because the bike is so narrow through the middle. The tank is slim, the seat tapers inward, and your legs drop almost straight down without being forced outward by the bike's width. Add to that a wet weight sitting in the low 300-pound range, and you have a dual sport that works in shorter riders' favor despite what the seat height number might initially suggest. Dual sports and ADV bikes are traditionally tall by necessity. Long travel suspension is required for off-road capability, but narrow, light examples like this one are more nuanced than the number alone implies. You can lean it slightly to one side and get a foot down without the weight working against you. Seat height still matters. Here is where it counts. None of that changes the fact that seat height is a key piece of the puzzle, especially when you are new. Slow speed maneuvers are one of the biggest obstacles for any beginning rider. Going fast in a straight line is the easy part. The real challenge is controlling the bike with precision in a parking lot, through a tight turn, or simply coming to a stop at a traffic light. Putting a foot down when balance wavers is a completely normal part of learning, and you build confidence far faster when reaching the ground is easy rather than stressful. If you are closer to 5 feet tall or under, a genuinely low seat height is effectively non-negotiable in the early stages. We are talking 25 to 29 inches. This is the primary reason the Honda Rebel 500 and the Kawasaki Eliminator 450 have become the default recommendations year after year. The Rebel 500 sits at 27 inches. With traditional cruiser ergonomics, you feel like you are sitting within the bike rather than on top of it. The Eliminator sits slightly higher at 29 inches, but with more neutral ergonomics that feel closer to a standard motorcycle than a low-slung cruiser. Depending on your overall proportions, beyond just inseam length, one will suit you better than the other. Both earn their place on every short rider list for good reason. Low seat height is the most immediate and reliable way to build ground contact confidence, which is why so many beginner-focused bikes default to this configuration. Weight changes everything when things go sideways. Seat height gets you started. Weight determines how much room for error you have when things do not go perfectly, and when you are learning, things will not always go perfectly. A bike that leans too far at a stop, an awkward approach to a corner, a moment where your foot does not land cleanly on a heavier machine, any of these situations escalates quickly. Once significant weight starts tipping past the balance point, recovery becomes extremely difficult. On a lighter bike, You have genuine room to catch it, shift your weight, and maintain control without the situation becoming a full commitment to the ground. For maximum room to recover as a shorter beginner rider, a mini bike like the Honda Grom essentially sets the difficulty level to easy. The seat height sits around 30 inches, not the lowest available, but not extreme either. The real advantage is the 220-pound wet weight. You can effectively toss a Grom around, catch it mid-lean, and pick it up without needing help. The power output is completely docile, and the overall character of the bike is friendly in every situation. The obvious limitations exist: top speed around 55 miles per hour and no real long-distance capability. But as an entry-level confidence builder for someone new to motorcycles who wants to eliminate as many obstacles as possible, the Grom is about as effective as it gets. If you want something slightly larger, the Honda XR150L or the Yamaha MT-03 both occupy the middle ground between a Grom and a full-sized motorcycle and are worth considering. Center of gravity matters more than total weight. Weight matters, but where the bike carries that weight matters just as much. Two motorcycles can share identical weights and similar seat heights and feel completely different the moment you lift them off the kickstand. That difference comes down to center of gravity. A bike that carries weight higher in the chassis feels top-heavy. It wants to tip, and once it starts leaning, it requires real effort to bring back. High-performance sport bikes are the clearest example of this. Even at moderate weights, the high center of mass makes slow-speed handling noticeably more demanding. The Indian Scout Bobber sits at the opposite end of that spectrum. It has a seat height of just 25.5 inches and carries its weight so low in the chassis that the 550-pound curb weight feels surprisingly manageable. It feels planted at stops and during slow-speed maneuvering in a way that directly contradicts what that weight figure implies on paper. It is a genuinely popular choice among shorter riders seeking more power and a premium feel without giving up the approachability of a low-slung cruiser. Adventure bikes offer another useful example. BMW GS owners consistently describe how manageable their tall, heavy machines feel despite the intimidating specifications because the low center of gravity and natural ergonomics compensate for the size in real-world handling. The smaller 750 and 850 GS models are frequently sought out by shorter riders, specifically because of the factory lowering options and low seat configurations available. Ergonomics, the final filter. Everything gets passed through. Seat height, seat width, weight, center of gravity, all of these factors ultimately get filtered through one final element: how the bike actually fits your body. And for shorter riders, this consideration is just as important as any of the measurements discussed so far. A shorter inseam typically correlates with shorter arms, a narrower shoulder width, and an overall smaller frame. Two riders with identical heights can have completely different experiences on the same motorcycle. One feeling comfortable and in control, the other feeling stretched out, cramped, and unable to move freely. That restriction in movement affects confidence just as directly as seat height does. The reach to the handlebars, the placement of the foot pegs, the shape and width of the seat, everything contributes to whether the bike works with your body or against it. Kawasaki acknowledged this directly with their ErgoFit system on the Vulcan S, which allows adjustment of the seat position, handlebar position, and foot control placement. It is a genuinely useful system, and the fact that it is not more widespread across the industry is a real gap. Imagine purchasing a car where the seat position was fixed at the factory. The equivalent situation in motorcycles is the industry standard, and it should not be. When ergonomics align correctly, everything else about controlling the motorcycle becomes easier. When they do not, even a bike that scores well on every other factor will still feel unmanageable. Where the limits actually are. Low seat height has limits that are worth naming directly. A Harley-Davidson bagger can sit below 27 inches under load, which sounds ideal on paper, but these machines weigh close to 900 pounds. Regardless of how low the center of gravity sits, 900 pounds is an enormous amount of motorcycle to manage at slow speeds or in parking lots. The width compounds the problem further. Wide seats, wide floorboards, and a foot stance pushed outward combine to create a situation where both feet are on the ground, but you are at the absolute limit of your reach with essentially no margin for error. A bike that feels perfectly manageable when you sit on it stationary can feel completely different the moment you start maneuvering it. That gap between static comfort and dynamic control is where a lot of shorter riders encounter unexpected difficulty. The honest conclusion is that there is no single perfect motorcycle for shorter riders. It is a combination of factors working together in your favor: seat height, seat width, overall weight, center of gravity, and ergonomic fit. Get enough of these working in the right direction, and the bike starts feeling genuinely manageable. And if the bike you want does not come perfect from the factory, modifications exist. Lower seats, suspension adjustments, aftermarket handlebars, and foot pegs can close the gap meaningfully. As your skills develop, the list of bikes that do not work for you gets shorter. Your best move right now is to sit on as many bikes as possible, because the one that fits you best might be the last one you expected. If this changed how you think about finding the right bike, hit that like button and subscribe to Drive with Kelly for more honest, practical motorcycle content that goes deeper than the spec sheet. And drop your pick in the comments. Which bike surprised you most on this list? And if comfort, confidence, and real-world riding matter more to you than chasing horsepower numbers, check out the video popping up on the upper left of your screen right now. These adventure bikes are perfect for riders over 55, and a few of them might be the best motorcycles you've never seriously considered. We'll see you in the next one.